Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let's kick it off then. So the first question is, how do you intend to really address the cost of the Batemans Bay pavilions instead of just reducing services for all the ratepayers? Now, how about we'll kick that one off with Rob Pollock. Are you there, Rob?
Just unmute yourself, Rob.
Yep. I think the important thing is to boost the activity within the pavilions. I think it's also important to note that the pavilions was always going to cost money. It was never, ever suggested that the pavilions or any aquatic centre in any local government area could operate not at a loss. But I think we need to do far more promotion. I think, for instance, it's the busiest intersection in the Shire. It should have a coming attractions board, a large lit board to let people know what's actually going on there. I mean, it's a great looking building, but if you're not familiar with it, would you be aware there are 4 swimming pools? Would you be aware that there's a state-of-the-art theatre and a brand new gymnasium there? So they're the sorts of things I think in the short term, things that we can do to boost activity and awareness of the centre.
All right. Okay, thank you, Rob. I'm just having a little trouble with my screen here. Now, how about we'll go to, who's next? Colleen Turner.
Sorry, everybody. I have a dog licking my hand while I try to unmute. Bit gross. Look, I have to agree with Rob. I think we have that building now. The thing to do is make sure that it doesn't, that the deficits disappear or reduce enormously. And as I understand it, there's some double up in how it's managed. So it would be good to perhaps take it back into council hands to manage it so that the deficit can be managed as well as possible. And it is a great community resource. I think there are many, many community agencies looking out for places to do their thing. The multicultural group are very keen to find a place where they can work and be. A number of other organisations and groups are also keen for that. It seems to me that it might be a place where some community information might be had for tourists and for visitors and for us. So there's many, many uses for it. It's just the question of how to make that pay, how to make it reduce the deficit. It is true that most community facilities do not make profits, but it is also true that not-for-profit doesn't mean deficit.
Okay, thanks, Colleen. And next, Sharon Greenslade. Have we got Sharon?
Just unmute yourself, Sharon, please.
There we go.
That was half of my speech. The debate pavilions, to start with, is a standout community asset. We have to start thinking about it like that. It is being over-subsidised, right? It's this running at a loss business. It's a community asset that we subsidise. We subsidise lots of assets. I've read all the information available on the PAVs. I read the sustainability plan, and I must say I was very disappointed. Most of that information isn't overly useful. It's business as usual, tidy up the costs. But recommendation 14, 15 and 24 was where the action is. We actually have to explore partnerships, identify commercial opportunities and develop stronger links with council and with marketing. But that second one is where it's at. It's a financial, economic and marketing analysis of what we can do to bring more activity, more money into the pavilions and use the spaces also for the community. So it's just the next piece, and it's a medium-term priority in the plan. We should be doing it right now. And that's nothing to do with the contract with Aligned Leisure. That may or may not proceed, who knows, but we actually don't have a really good picture of what we could do with the PAVs for the community and make more money, and then reduce the subsidy, because it will always be subsidised. We just have to bring it within normal levels. So I just think there's a job to be done, and we should already be doing it.
Thanks, Sharon. Matt Hatcher.
Yeah, thanks. I think I agree a bit with Rob and a bit with Sharon. You know, the contract does matter. There is a contract in place, and Line Leisure having that contract until April next year. The PAV will always run at a loss. That's okay. It is a community asset. It's the scale of the loss that's the problem. You know, Rob spoke about boards. I wish that would have been in the business case from the start. I think that there wasn't enough done up front to make sure that this thing wasn't going to lose the amount of money it is. The depreciation on it is out of this world, and it's something that we can't act as if it doesn't exist. It's how we got in this situation in the first place. We weren't depreciating the pool. We didn't have any money to build a new pool, so we had to build the PAV because there was no grant for a pool at the time. We need to look at new ways to, whether it's subleasing the gym and the cafe, whether it's alternative marketing options, private events, weddings, alternative revenue models. There's lots of things we can do. That contract, though, does have to be seen out, but I would be pushing hard for the new council, if elected, to bring the management back in-house once the contract is up in April next year. And obviously reviewing any opportunities around power. That's a huge consumption. We're doing 4 times the power in the original business case. So it's going to be an ongoing issue for every ratepayer in the Shire, but reducing services isn't an option. It's about reducing the amount of debt that it takes year on year.
Thank you, Matt. Anthony Main.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, mute off. Look, terrific question. Thanks, Moruya Mail and Tricia, for putting this wonderful event on. Look, I think the late Leigh Parker in his last presentation to council, to pick up maybe on Rob's earlier comments, did say, hey, you've got it, you now have to deal with it, make use of it. It is a terrific facility. We do need to prioritise it though, notwithstanding there's a contract through to next year. This is a substantial issue. I know there's a few of us on record of not having supported the business case because of this inevitable situation we're in, but that's no point crying over spilt milk. How do we resolve it? So I think we as the new council needs to put this as one of the priority tasks, because there's a little bit of lead in time to any project plan we pull together. We do need the key stakeholders together. There are great opportunities to bring this in-house, to manage it ourselves, to look at how we can better utilise and get a higher return on what is a critical community asset. But I think we need to do it together, not just as council, but working with the community and other key stakeholders as a key priority, because a $6 million year-on-year loss for the next 10 years is clearly unsustainable, and it does need to be a priority for the new council. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Does anyone, would anyone like to have a reply to any of those comments? We move on to the next question.
Alan Ray is here. I'd like to have a reply.
Well, we hadn't
Hello,
really.
can I be heard?
Oh, I can hear you, but I'm not sure that Tricia's. We were going to have just the council candidates actually speak.
Sure.
But
We'll have some time for questions at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Or questions that relate to that specific question can happen now. I think we've got 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, then Alan Rees want to ask his question now then?
Look, I'd like to say that however wonderful it was obviously way beyond the Shire's capability, and that was known before the contracts were signed, before the votes were taken. And I think those councillors who are still candidates in this election ought to be held responsible for financial failure by creating such a huge ongoing debt and threatening all the other activities of the council. A much more modest building and swimming pool could have been done, but it wasn't. So I know that Rob Pollock voted in favour of it. I'm not sure which other councillors did. I know that Anthony Main did not vote for it. Many of the other councillors who voted for it, Liz Innes and others, have left the council, but I think it's important that people take responsibility for doing such a over-the-top and grand, wonderful thing that was clearly beyond what the Shire could afford.
Okay, thanks, Alan. We might move on to the next question now. And the next question is regarding affordable housing. What are your plans for improving affordable housing? This is a question from Michael Brown. And I'll go first this time to Colleen Turner.
Thank you. I should probably just run with healthy, happy and housed. That's our platform for this election. And, you know, again, interconnected, the three things work together. But Greens really support medium density in Eurobodalla. And to keep our, you know, to keep the vibe of here, a relaxed coastal visiting area, ecotourism, not the Gold Coast. I think we need to put some height limits on it. I have suggested, pretty much off the top of my head, 5 stories, but I think we can look at a housing at a development level that could and should be enforced. And one of the things to say about that is we have a draft housing strategy, which doesn't include a pile of things that could include, including social and public housing. And so if our draft housing strategy, a little bit more time is spent on it and it becomes an affordable housing strategy that includes the whole strategy, but an affordable component, then there's a whole lot we can do with improving that. I think part of that strategy should be to do a bit of an overview of what kind of public and affordable housing there is in the Shire. I know that there's bits and pieces. It would be good to have that mapped as part of the plan. There's lots of other maps, including physical maps. Let's do a map of what's available and let's work with the agencies that already do that sort of work, but do more of it.
Thank you, Colleen. Next to Sharon.
Right, so I'm going to be number 2. Labor, we here in our little Labor group across Moruya, Narooma and Batemans Bay pulled the affordable housing background paper to pieces, compared it with Bega, compared it with Nowra, which is 7 years ago, put it back together and put our submission in on what we should think should happen. And Shoalhaven, as I said on the radio the other day, Shoalhaven is up to their review. They've been at it for 7 years. Bega's well on the way. So just in a nutshell, and it is a shopping list, because once we get together and actually get a plan, affordable housing strategy going here, we won't know what's doable, but our shopping list, and it is a shopping list, is design affordable housing strategy, number 1, and we should have a housing officer. We need to advocate to increase social housing. We need to reform our planning so the housing types meet all the residents' needs. We need to provide incentive to increase the number of houses for long-term rental. Facilitate joint housing options, which is boarding houses. I'm sure there are people out there who would love to rent a room to someone, to a student. Facilitate building housing on council land. We need some partnerships. We need to identify council land. There is council land here. Our background paper does not include any land, because we didn't ask where the council land might be. So that's a whole nother piece of work we have to do, and work with the state government to identify state land for social housing. So, you know, it is a big shopping list, and it's not going to be easy, but we have to do it. The market will not meet 80% of the needs for housing here into the future. So all those levels of government have a responsibility. And as I said the other day, the CEO of the Commonwealth Bank said that. I'm not saying that. He's saying every level of government needs to take an active role. And that is not just advocating. Some things we just advocate. With this, we need to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Now we'll go to who's next? Matt Hatcher.
Thanks, Alex. Following on from the housing strategy, I think a priority of ours needs to be looking at alternative cost-effective housing types. But you know, we've been working through and developing a master plan for Batemans Bay now for 18 months with plenty of input, and it's all about bringing housing and tourism back to the CBD. We then need to move on to Moruya and Narooma. We need to be reviewing our DCPs. That hasn't been done since 2011, so they're outdated. That will speed up DAs. It will look at new opportunities as well. We need to streamline houses and get them built. We need stock. We need to stop talking about it and actually get on with it and make land available to be built. And we've got, at every turn, a group standing up, talking about affordable housing, but at every turn getting in the way of building affordable housing. Without stock, house prices will not come down. And I'm incredibly passionate about getting more houses built, getting infill in the CBDs. And I think it's got something we've got to swallow, and we've got to get on with it. We can't keep going back to the drawing board with every election.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And Anthony Main.
Yeah, thank you. Terrific question. Look, I absolutely support infill strategy. So that's looking at diversifying the building stock within the major town centres and indeed raising the height. That's a critical piece. I think we're all possibly saying the same thing on that regards. We've got a housing strategy that's been out for public consultation, which is just simply not fit for purpose. Because if you define affordability as you're spending greater than 30% of your income on a unit in Batemans Bay, if you're a teacher or if you're a nurse on an entry point 1-bedroom unit in Batemans Bay, you can't afford that now. So to say more stock is the answer, that's a developer's mantra. It's a part of them. It's a part of the equation. I get that, absolutely. Council and other agencies, other state and federal governments have a clear role here of getting around the table and enabling strategies. So we've got a key role. So what does that look like? So council has a number of blocks of land across the shire that have been given to us as part of the developers developing their properties. So why aren't we sitting down with the Lions Club and CWA, etc., and looking at putting units on those blocks of land for disadvantaged people, for women over 55 who find themselves living in cars because of domestic violence or because of lack of superannuation or whatever the case is. So we've got a lot of opportunities, but we need to set some clear targets and tools. We've put out a strategy to this community that is absolutely silent on affordable housing. So when I go on about and introduce into the debate 70-metre towers in Batemans Bay, I do so in one reason, because I want to shine a light that says, folks, developers carving up our shires does not give us affordable housing. Affordable housing comes from a discerned, specific strategy where you get the key players around a table, not having background discussions just with developers. Let's get everyone around the table. Thank you.
Okay, and now it's over to Rob Pollock.
I think council's primary responsibility is to make sure there's adequate opportunity for all forms of housing to take place. For instance, we've just received 11, when I say just, in the last 12, 18 months, 11 to 12 million from New South Wales government, so that we can actually make blocks that are existing and zoned in Moruya in particular. It's provided infrastructure that will allow us to put those blocks on the market and make them available for the variety of housing that everybody has referred to. But I think when you look at the responsibility of who can do what, local government receives 3% of the total tax take in Australia. There's no way known that local government is the key or the whole answer to the problem that's facing right across, not just within the Eurobodalla. So it is working, it is putting a variety of built form in various areas, but it's council's role to facilitate the infill type of arrangement that will improve the lower cost land available that would normally be at the cost of the developers, which is prohibitive and will stop affordable housing or affordable blocks of land being made available. So we're part of it, but we're a long way from the whole answer. I'm happy to work with anyone. We're all clearly aware of the problems, but it needs to be a very integrated approach. What it really boils down to is the lack of action and ignorance by state and federal government, who have the big pockets and the big amounts of money, and what they haven't done over the last 20 years. But it's what we do now.
Thank you, Rob.
Can I just ask a supplementary question there? Rob, you said that was a state grant to council.
Yep.
For council to release land. Now, it's its own land or developers' land?
No, the land was already zoned and released, but it is providing the essential infrastructure in terms of water, sewerage, and all of those types of essential infrastructure before the blocks could actually go on the market, which would normally be the responsibility and cost of the developers.
Right. Okay. All right. That's an interesting one. Okay. Let's go to the next question then.
Is there a follow-on at all, Alex? Sorry.
Oh, yes, if you like to. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've got a very small screen, so I can't see
How much
everyone.
time do I get to respond is all?
Oh, just give us a minute.
It's nothing. I mean, Councillor Pollock, correct. $11 million was put into that area of South Moruya for infrastructure on land that probably would be decades before it was developed. And also, I just noticed in the chat from Melanie White, absolutely, we have to be looking at rezoning as well. And anyone who thinks that we're not, we're not being serious about it. It's really about how can we really change something quickly. And to be honest, I think everyone on this Zoom chat, everyone in the Shire agrees. It's about how do we actually get on with it. And I couldn't agree more with Councillor Pollock when he said the state and the federal government, the Liberal and the Labor Party, have been absolutely not doing their fair share for decades.
Okay, anyone else?
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which is we are seeing the devastating effects of climate change throughout our Shire, country and planet. Major flooding, coastal erosion and bushfires are becoming more frequent events. What will you, as Mayor, do to stop new developments in high-risk areas affected by sea level rise, floods, bushfires, and in endangered ecological communities? Now, let's start with Sharon this time.
Oh dear, I would have preferred to have gone last with this one. I'm not a councillor at the moment, and I'm happy to admit I don't have any real insight into what's possible, and it's a huge body of investigation and a huge body of work. And there are people on the panel who are probably better placed than me at this point to speak to the issue. It's just too big a one for me at the moment to swallow, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, all right, thanks. And then we'll then go on to Matt Hatcher.
Yeah, I agree with Sharon. It's kind of unfair for anyone who's not been in there and knows some of the inner workings. And I've also, just for the record, I think it's only fair to say that the question was posed by a current candidate of Anthony Main's party. So I just want to, I like to be as transparent as possible on everything.
Not this question. This is from Giovanna Hounsell.
Sorry, is this number 3?
No, we took number 3 out.
Ah, okay, fantastic.
Discussed earlier because after discussing that it was coming from a candidate, we decided to delete it. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. This is actually number 4.
Great, sorry, apologies. So this was about coastal erosion and bushfires.
Stopping development in high-risk areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look around the Shire and there's certain things, if you want to refer to them as zombie developments, there's some issues of the past that hopefully the state government can address some of those problems going forward. But developments are controlled through land zoning, and councils, I guess, consider all those factors when rezoning any sort of land for development. And we've had developments during our term refused on the basis of flood risk. We're working on infill strategies in our CBDs. The housing crisis is obviously creating more and more problems. And we've got the risk obviously in Batemans Bay. We're having the issues in Surfside. Going forward, we are planning. I think council is doing a lot of work in that space, and it's about making sure that we're not allowing anything to continue. But some of those problems of the past, and that's of no blame of any council. It's just history, and some of it coming back to bite us now. It's to an extent. Sometimes it is what it is. We can only fix what we can fix going forward. We can't, repair some of those problems that we've made in the past.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Now, Anthony Main.
Thank you. So I think this is a really important issue in that when we talk about infill strategies, I'm really concerned we continue to talk about sprawl, so rural sprawl. So we know we've had a lot of concern from people down at Mystery Bay about their biodiversity corridor down there, and they're concerned that it's targeted for possible at some future event development by council. A critical fire issue, clearly. We also have a rural land strategy that this council, not this council, the previous council, rejected multiple state agency, New South Wales government state agencies, recommendations as to how we could best practice in the development of rural land strategy. So we do have a little bit of a legacy of some issues that I think we need to be a lot tighter on in terms of how we do our zoning. We can see now with climate change, the world's changing rapidly around us. So how we zone, where we zone, we actually need to be big enough to accept the subject matter experts feeding us information to make us more informed in the way we go about doing this. The world's changed. We need to adapt to it. But developing places like Mystery Bay, there's some really common sense things we just simply shouldn't be doing, especially when there's significant fire risk as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Now, Rob Pollock.
Well, I think you first must acknowledge that Mystery Bay is on nobody's horizon. There are absolutely no strategies or plans to service the area, which was probably referred to when the original Mystery Bay village was developed, and it was set aside that maybe in the future there are absolutely no plans and no suggestion that anything will take place in that area. There's certainly a big problem in terms of climate change. What we need to do here is be aware of where perhaps things could have been done better in the past and how they're approached in the future. But that doesn't mean that we're going to stop whatever is legitimately zoned to happen within the Shire. What we do have is a foreknowledge now to better prepare and design things to minimise any risk factor which takes place. So it's not a matter of, no, we must stop. It's a matter of being aware and developing, being aware of all of the issues. I mean, 80% just about of our Shire is either national park or state forest. So there's an awful lot of area that is preserved. So it's how we maximise or accommodate the demands of our increasing population and where people want to live, and how we do that being aware of the restrictions which apply to all of the land and zonings within the Shire. We are a very delicate organisation. It's as simple as that. So we need to be aware and plan and go forward accordingly.
Okay, thanks, Rob. And Colleen Turner.
Oh dear, how did I get to go last on this one? Someone said to me to watch my ums, but I'm watching my ums. Ums are important and give me a space to think. I agree with Rob. We live in a very beautiful area. We live in a place that must be preserved for all sorts of ecological reasons. And we live in a place that is highly susceptible to all sorts of climate change actions. There's flood, there's fire, there's sea level rising, all the things here. And one of the things I would say is that the housing plan, if we can tie it up with all the other plans, so rural development lands plan, one of the things that really local government must do is make sure their plans actually speak to one another and work together when they are implemented. So one, implement. Two, speak to all the other plans. So in this instance, a climate change strategy and a climate change plan must work in conjunction with the housing strategy and must work in conjunction with keeping land, the treescapes to control climate, to control increasing temperatures and all the sorts of things that we expect to happen. And at the same time, we need to try and maintain a habitat for the enormous diversity of fauna and flora that we have here, and things like small initiatives such as the microforest that enable individual landowners to work together to, keep the blue-banded bees going, which keeps the plants pollinated, which keeps all sorts of other things going. So it is a delicate ecological system that needs to be maintained, and we need to make sure that what we as humans do doesn't impact that overly. One of the things I see in the chat is that we have, according to the rural plan, plenty of land
Thank
available.
you, Colleen.
So let's use it.
Okay, thank you all for that. Now, are there any supplementary questions regarding that topic? No? We're racing through the questions. Okay, on to the next question, which is from Karen Giselhart. How would candidates address the need for much improved public transport, including access to the new hospital? Now let's, how about we start with Anthony Main this time?
Yeah, thanks. Big shout out to Dr. Michelle Hamrossi as well. Forgot to do that from the previous non-question, Matt, so I better give her a plug. So look, this is such an important issue in terms of transportation. We don't have a train, so we rely on bus, taxis, but also big shout out and acknowledgement of the Eurobodalla transportation front that comes from volunteers that work with council as well. This is really important. So how people access, especially the new hospital, is going to be really important. But again, we also have significant amounts of buses in our shire, and this topic continually comes up. And then when we talk to the bus companies, their patronage is not really high during the day quite often. So I think this would be an area to take away and to do a real deeper analysis with key organisations to understand what is the specific need to help us inform a more effective strategy for our shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Then we'll go to, let's go to Matt Hatcher this time.
Thanks, Alex. I guess for the community, it may not be aware, council currently runs community transport service for our older demographic, for people with disabilities, anyone with disadvantage with transport options and carers. They take people to Nowra, Canberra, Bega Hospital all the time. And obviously that'll continue with the new Moruya Hospital. We've got Pryor's Bus Service, which is a private company, and they currently operate all around the region. We could obviously look at options. The state government could look at options, maybe subsidising them to do more. But ultimately, transport's done by Transport for New South Wales, and they're responsible for public transport. We did have a task force, a bus task force that Dr. Michael Holland ran earlier this year, where we met with, we put the offer up. There was a big forum at the PAV, and we heard from people about some of the issues around that, and that'll be going back to the state government for a review in hopes that when they do launch the new hospital, there's some more options. But I kind of agree with Anthony. It's something we could look at deeper. But we've also need people using the buses. It's one thing to want them, but if no one's actually using the service, that they're a private business, that it doesn't become sustainable.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. And Rob Pollock.
Just unmute yourself there, please, Rob.
Beg your pardon. I've been involved with a lot of development of transport strategies through my role for 15 years as Chairman of Regional Development Australia. I've done it within the Shire. I've done it within the wider South Coast region. the problem is obviously the distances involved and the potential of the people that are going to use the service. Unless there's a significant level of subsidy from state or federal government, it's just not profitable. That's what stops having effective public transport around. The mention of Eurobodalla community transport, fantastic. It fills an enormous hole. We're also very lucky that we have a very willing public that are more than available to help neighbours that need assistance. But you're going to have to look at just what are the financial implications, because you're not going to get people taking on the role if it's going to lose money. So it's how you make it effective, and it's going to be a significant problem. There is not an easy answer. If there's an easy answer, it would have happened 20 years ago. So we've got to face the reality of the stretch of distance that is within the Shire and the spread of all of our major towns and small villages. Not an easy question to answer. We've certainly gone back in. I agree, there's a terrific number of buses within the area, but it's the cost of providing the sorts of services which people are talking about and require, but cannot at this stage make it work for people that operate those services.
Thanks, Rob. And Colleen.
It is a wicked problem. I was privileged to once be the coordinator of community transport in Melbourne, and I had a tiny little municipality of Maribyrnong, known to others as Footscray, to do that within, and it was challenging. And I think I agree with everybody that the service provided here is outstanding. I think it would be great if it was further able to be increased so that it provides a preventative approach as well as so that people who need outings for their mental and physical health can be activated to get that sort of thing rather than just straight out medical appointments. I understand that that's a resourcing question, but still it would be important. I think we have a number of aged care facilities in the Shire, and many of those don't have systems for getting people to and from medical services, as I understand it. The other thing, though, I would say on a preventative basis is we need a really active transport strategy whereby we can really encourage walking, riding, all the different things apart from getting in your car and doing stuff. Many, many people around here have not only bicycles for the hills around Moruya Bay where I live, but they also have an electric bike, which can help a lot. So some strategies around getting people really active and getting them well so that there's less need for, transport for things like medical appointments would be really, really useful.
Thanks, Colleen. And Sharon?
Just have to send a message. Look, I did the 101 research on this, and as Matt Hatcher said, the recommendation 4 of the Bus Industry Task Force talked about bus service contracts for the next generation of the rural and regional contracts. So that's on foot in state government. And I also understand the council has been working with the local health district on the new hospital. So that's one thing I found really fantastic about the new hospital. I describe the new hospital as the tip of the iceberg. There's all this work going underneath it to get that hospital established and running, and this is just another element of it for the hospital. Deb Stevenson just said Bega has on-demand transport. I'd like to know about that. How does that work? Look, the bottom line is we live in the regions, councils subsidise, and state government needs to subsidise too. And if we need more subsidy, smaller buses, I don't know what it is, but if we need more transport, then that's the job of council, is to actively advocate. That's the job. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Has anyone got any supplementary?
Yes, please.
Questions?
Sorry, Alex, it's Matt. Just about the on-demand bus service, that's Transport for New South Wales. So while I agree with Deb and thanks, Sharon, for pointing it out. Again, it goes back to the state government. They're the ones who pay for that and run that service. You know, I guess I'll point back to council doesn't run bus services. And if we start doing things like that, not for profit, we're going to keep going in the same direction, and you'll see your rates going up. And I think it's important that council does stick to its lane and push the state and the federal government for the money, where all your taxes go is to them. And we shouldn't be having to beg for it back year on year by grants. They should be funding these things and funding councils properly.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Anyone else? No? Okay, well, let's move on to the next question.
Sorry, could I do
Alex, just
sorry,
one question.
Anthony, yep.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. It's a bit.
Go ahead.
Look,
I can't see everyone.
Yeah, beg your pardon. If you link that back, this conversation, it's really good, positive conversation, to the issue of affordability as well. So I think it's testament as to why an infill strategy becomes more and more viable, because you've got the roads, you've got the sewerage, you've got the fire security, all the infrastructure comes together. The more we continue to spread, the more potential we need infrastructure, more transportation issues. So the more we lean into an infill strategy, the less sometimes the transportation becomes an issue regionally. That's not the full answer, I get that, but I think it is a part of the bigger picture discussion moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
I've
Is
got
that
a question
everyone
on
We had a question from
active
Alan.
transport. Yeah.
Hello,
Look, it's to the mayoral candidates. Would they support an active transport strategy that actually linked up the villages and towns to the towns? Because at the moment there are bits of shared paths that go to some of the places but not others, and that this would allow people with bicycles, electric bicycles, mobility scooters, and in many places within certain distance pedestrians to actually get around Shire and have a network that was connected, not just as we have at the moment, sort of bits here and there.
Who'd like to answer that one?
I'm happy to jump in because I'm flashing back. Rob will remember this. I think I was on the committee with Guy Brantingham and others a number of years ago. I'm going to say 2012, somewhere around there, which was looking at the integrative model of cycling across our Shire. So you'll see a number of little signposts for our Shire to try to link pathways together. But I think it's a really important discussion, Alan, in terms of and I think Sharon picked up on it earlier, walkways, pathways, etc. How do we integrate, given we are such a long Shire, where can we do this smarter? And I think it does come down to also council working with specific groups to formulate this and then to bring it out to the public and into the council space for discussion. And I think I can see Catherine Maxwell here. So Shazza do a lot of advocacy in this space, electric bikes, because transportation modes are also changing now. So suddenly an electric bike is a bit of a game changer if you're looking to ride a push bike from Moruya out to Tommington for a coffee. That's viable now. But equally, unless you're going along the dunes, you're on 100-kilometre road area. So there's a safety. So yeah, look, I think it's really important. There's a lot we could do here. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony.
There's a question in the chat from Catherine. What about access to our Moruya Airport? Is it okay if you live in the north of the Shire, but $150 to get to the airport by taxi here in Narooma? Did anybody want to answer that?
I'm happy to jump in if no one. I mean, back to I'll touch a little bit on Alan's question as well. I mean, I think you won't find a councillor who doesn't want to see footpaths on every street and connecting to towns. But you ought to also remember we've got 100+ kilometres long Shire, and we choose to live in a place that is far from a city, so we can't continue to expect, especially from a council, a regional council, to be able to do that. Do we all want it? Of course. Is it going to take a long time? I believe it will. I think you start with places like Moruya Heads. Obviously, that should be linked, and the footpath there should be finalised. There's going to be other places where we've seen pushes from Mogo to connect to Browley and then on to the airport. So I think we all agree but it's going to take some time, and there's inevitably going to be gaps in it because of the length of the shire and the places we said. When we talk about taxi services from Narooma to Moruya, you know, again, I think it comes back to that's a private company and operator, and when you choose to live in a place that is 30 minutes drive in a regional area, you can't necessarily expect to not, you know, there's downsides and upsides to that. And sometimes the $150 taxi is the downside. I pushed heavily before the last election to get Uber down here. Now, the taxi service down here wouldn't like the idea of Uber. I think it does give the community a cheaper option, but we're not seeing an uptake by people wanting to drive. So until you see people wanting to utilize these services, you're not going to see any momentum on the price of it going down either.
Right. Okay. Now we have got a further question a little later on.
Can I just?
Yes, Rob.
I'm sorry. I think you've broken 20 different eggs into the one fry pan. You can't start talking about our walking paths, our cycling paths, and how they fit into a public transport situation. You'll never get it integrated. It's just too diverse. It doesn't link up. I'm sorry, I live in the real world. I would love to see improved services, but I think you need to clearly enunciate where your priorities lie. What are you talking about? Are you talking about increasing and linking up the cycling and walking paths within the Shire? It's a great work. There is a strategy. We are infilling all the way around it. But to link that back in to public transport and the needs, you're talking about a lot of very diverse and very difficult to integrate to that point in time.
Okay, right. I'll just bring up in the chat, Iris has put a comment in there to saying public transport is never meant to be profitable because people don't use public transport because it's not available. There is no accessible transport available in Narooma at all, while council does provide it in Moruya and Batemans Bay. Does anyone want to comment on that? No? All right, well, we'll move on to the next question. There is another one further on which regards transport. So this is a question from Coral Anderson. If elected, will you support a strategy and plans to increase urban green spaces and promote the use of native plant species in public and private landscaping? Now let's go first to, how about Colleen on this one?
Well, of course, I would agree with that. It's kind of 101 Greens policy. And I think, and absolutely, it is something that would be very, very useful here. Of course, I support it. And I think that it's something that can be done fairly well. Council already has a really good strategy for working with the community in giving us more options around plants, like native local plants. We have the great botanic gardens who do that too. So absolutely, I would support that. I think it could use some more oomph, but that is just onward going. I think what it also needs is for new developments to have some strategy for treescaping and so on, which is kind of related, but not exactly the same thing.
Thanks, Colleen. And Rob Pollock? You'll need to
unmute yourself, please.
I think the current controls in terms of providing green space as related to our development and subdivision, I think are more than adequate, particularly with regard to the earlier comment I made regarding state forests and national parks. We are well serviced in terms of open space within the Shire. And really, I think we should be concentrating on other issues. I think that's well in hand within the Shire.
Thanks, Rob. And Sharon?
So in terms of the first part of the question, yes and always. In terms of the second part, in terms of promoting the use of native plants and species, I'm a friend of the Eurobodalla Gardens. I'm on the committee. And we have new fellows come over from Kings Park, Dr. Luke Swedman. He was the curator for the seed bank over there. And he cannot believe that we plant Western Australian plants over here. He said, what are you doing? You should be planting local plants because they do best. And if you look at your gardens right now, they're all drying out. Those that are drying out are natives, but they're not local natives. So we've been talking about how we at the Friends can actually get out there and promote local with the gardens. So when you hear about it, you go and buy them. And any contract that we get for anything to do with landscaping here in the Shire, we need to be getting our supply from the Botanic Gardens. Not what the architects think look nice. We need to plant local. So I'm a bit passionate about this. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, thanks, Sharon. And Anthony Main.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks. I notice Deb Stevenson just put a post in there. Just going to go back very quickly. Deb, when the council modifies or upgrades roads, we're supposed to increase the shoulder at that time for roads so it's an ongoing strategy to make cycleways more accessible. So there is a strategy in place. But to this point, look, I think bigger picture, we've got a small environment department. We've heard that recently in council, and we've got a number of groups out there who want to work with the council and bring their expertise to bear. Look, I actually do think that council could be a little bit more courageous and open the doors up to some community groups who clearly want to partner with our council. I'm finding it a little bit problematic at this point, and that's disappointing because they bring expertise to the council, and council can't have all the answers, but council working with the community has a lot more answers. We can do this together. So things like planting on nature strips or on verges, the fire tolerant, more drought resistant shade trees for our Shire. These are strategies. Significant tree registration strategy, a tree policy. You know, we cut down a lot of trees as a council because of safety issues and all the rest of it, but where's the replacement? So there's a net sum loss over time. So I do think we could do a lot better job in this space. And next council, hopefully, can embrace some of the community groups that do want to work with this council. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Matt, that's just Matt, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I think firstly to start is the Shire is 80% bushland. So that's a fantastic start that we've all got and we'll never lose. The Batemans Bay Master Plan, which is currently being done up, is looking at the possibility, which community will see next month, of a huge town centre green space in the middle of it. So I think council is being proactive in that space, but you know, we can't fix what we're not allowed to fix. I think Batemans Bay needs to be the catalyst for that, and then we move on to the other towns. As Sharon said, the Botanical Gardens is a fantastic space. I think it's underutilized by the community, and I wish more would get out there and see it. It's a fantastic space, and they provide amazing resources for people. And the staff there are very active in promoting bush-friendly and water-wise gardening, and they do a lot of courses out there as well. We've recently, under this current council, approved the Verge Gardens guidelines, which allows people to plant shrubs, ground covers, and bushes on council verges. You just need to leave a bit of a footpath. And I think Batemans Bay and Narooma streetscapes, I mean, they're currently planted with natives, and we're always looking at more opportunities, at more plantings throughout the Shire as well.
Right, thanks, Matt. That's everyone, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, all right. Now the next question is what are your plans to improve reuse, repurposing and recycling? Let's start with let's start with Colleen.
Am I at the top of your screen, Alex?
No, I can't see all the
It's all good.
I'm just being random.
Super, Colleen. I don't think there's Council has some great repurposing, recycling opportunities, but I think that there's also a pile of community things that are starting to happen that Council could work alongside with, building on Anthony's point from before. I think that's true for almost every one of the issues that we've discovered. There are many people who want to work together to make sure that things are recycled, repurposed, reused. And now is a great time to be talking about that because, you know, the trucks are coming along to take away stuff that people have put out on their front lawns. So I think council could and should have made a bit more of the current hard rubbish moment to do a bit of recycling, repurposing, and so on. There are some my favourite great opportunity though is the recycling of the solar panels. That's apparently, from everything that I've heard and people I've talked to, one of the great innovations that we have currently going here. And it's great to go out to Moruya and have a look at what's being done with recycled solar panels out there. It'd be good, I believe, to have a good recycling process and a good recycling depot at every one of the three major towns, because currently it's not the same in every place, and then you have to drive a long way to take your solar panels to your old solar panels to one place and your old microwave to another place, and so on. And if you're elderly and you don't have a car, then you have to find someone who can help you with that. So we could do better, we could do more. There's a long way to go with that.
Okay, thanks, Colleen. Rob Pollock.
I think we lead the way in the types of initiatives that council have introduced in terms of recycling, but you have to be realistic too in terms of what can we achieve and at what cost. So there's lots of recycling initiatives, but you run into the problem of scale and what's economic. But we've done a lot of really innovative work in all of the whole green of recycling and what we can turn waste into useful product. But you have to look at what's realistic, what can be achieved that's economic. There's a lot of things you can do, but you'll have to either subsidise them or they will cost money. So you've got to balance all of the requirements and what the ratepayers should be expected to finance and encourage. But in actual fact, what we do, we are industry leaders right across the board in these terms of recycling, reissuing, and what type of opportunities are in the future. But you must always bring it back to what levels are economically sustainable in a reasonable fashion.
Thanks, Rob. And how about we go to Anthony Main now?
Thanks, Alex. Look, I was really excited to see Council's initiative fairly recently in terms of soft plastic recycling at the waste depots. We know across the country we've got a big problem in that space, but the Eurobodalla has, and if people aren't aware, you can take your soft plastics out to the depots, and that's a great initiative. To extend that further, so to partner with the Woolies or relevant organisations across the Shire, so those bins can be re-established. I think that's something we could explore moving forward on that one. That's a real possibility. I hate all the plastic and throwing it out, so we've started to put it in the bags. But again, you've got to hop in the car and get out to the waste depots. Look, I love the work that places like the Eurobodalla Repair Cafe, who are at the Moruya Red Door Hall, do in terms of I post now and again on Facebook the repairs to drills and garden edges and all the rest of it. They're terrific instead of just throwing things out. So that's another opportunity. And pick up on Rob's point, maybe some of the green scraps, not the green waste, but there's something we could do in that space, but that's going to take more scalability, working possibly with Bega and Shoalhaven down the track. So there's definitely a work we could continue to enhance. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. And Sharon.
So everything Colleen said, everything Anthony said. The first thing I wrote is, well, I don't think it's sending a large crusher truck round to pick up the hard waste, which is exactly what Colleen's saying. There's all sorts of wonderful resources there that we just crushed and we're going to put in landfill. We do have good local initiatives. We've got the Repair Cafe, the repurposing for resilience. Building a circular economy is another initiative. I'm an economist, and when I hear people say it's just not economic, the role of governments, all governments, is if it's not economic, is to subsidise it. That's what a subsidy is. It's to make sure everybody has everything that everyone else has got around Australia. It's about being equitable. So as soon as I hear, oh, it's not cost benefit, it's not cost effective, or it's not economic, I really get quite motivated, because that's what economics is about. What is the role of government? And the role of government is to pick up the tab and make sure everybody can get access to what everybody else is getting. And it just includes, like, Bega's doing FOGO. Why aren't we doing that? Like, it's the art of the possible, not that we've tried that, we can't do it. I just think we need to look to the future and say, what can we do? Let's try and punch above our weight.
Thanks, Sharon. And Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Listen, I disagree with Sharon. It's not about. We can't all be equitable. We can't have an international airport in Moruya, and we're not going to. Bega Valley are going backwards with FOGO, losing money hand over fist. They just went for an SRV of 55%. Shoalhaven doesn't have FOGO. They don't even collect their green bin. They don't have a green bin collection to Shoalhaven. I think we are a regional space. We've got to be smarter and work with our counterparts around us. We have a CRJO, which we meet with regularly, and we're working on a solution to sort of bring an area together, find a way that we can work more regionally, because there's no point duplicating what the Bega Valley has or what Shoalhaven has when we should all be trying to work together to do something. We can't keep duplicating everything in every town to give everyone everything, because that is what drove us into the financial position we're in, and it's only going to drive us deeper into that if we continue down that mantra that we all deserve everything that everyone has. But sorry, let me just go quickly to some of the other things about the question. Okay. I agree. We can go down the path of Bega, do something more holistic around a circular economy. We've seen repurposing for resilience, which is a fantastic initiative out at the transfer waste station. We've obviously got the soft plastic trial that's happening now as well. And we should be working more collaboratively in the community with shops, maybe collecting those. I've worked with some of the cafes that I work with in the coffee industry around possibly having bins for central points in each town where people can drop those soft plastics. Not everyone can get out to the transfer or the tip stations. There's lots of things we can do, but again, it's got to be economic. It's got to stack up. And the state government is broke, and the federal government is not doing very well either. The whole country's in an economic downturn, and I don't think we can just keep begging the government for more money, because the money is our tax dollars. Every dollar spent is our tax dollars, and they're going to just come asking for more if we keep asking for it.
Yeah, that's everyone for that question. I just point out one of the comments here, and it's from Repurposing for Resilience in the chat, where they actually say that their initiative with the solar panels is actually saved the council $14,000 to date, which is quite impressive, really. And it says council also demands revenue for the space which is unserviced. Yeah, I don't know. Has anyone else got any follow-up questions on that topic of recycling, repurposing?
Just again that.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. Cheers, mate. Just again, this is one of those wonderful opportunities. It doesn't all sit on council. You've got so many organisations out there, and we just alluded to a number of them, who are passionate at this space. They volunteer each week. They make a real big difference to what goes into our waste depots, to what's recycled, etc. They really enhance our community and enhances our resilience. They're there. They're wanting to work with council. Sometimes I don't think council puts out the welcome mat enough to collaborate, because if you can, 1 + 1 = 3 if you get the synergy together, if we work together. It's not just council sitting there. Council's got all the answers, and there's the community over there. Let's get this council working better and tighter with our community, because, geez, we've got some incredible people out there who want to make a difference and make some positive change. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just mention
Matt,
something,
you
Alex?
wanna reply? Yep.
Yeah, I'll just be quick. Just around someone in the chat, I don't think it's a real name, says about FOGO by 2030. That's true, but not every council needs to do FOGO. You know, if we had a station in Cobargo or a station in, you know, not Tilburg, but Narooma, outside of Narooma somewhere, that was more central for 2 shires to share, that would be more cost effective. We have to find a way to make it stack up, whether that's putting it in somewhere in the Shoalhaven and transferring it there, or putting it somewhere in our shire and they transferring their stuff here. It's got to stack up. If not, it's going to send the council deeper into debt, and we will be going for a rate increase. And no one's going to be happy with that either. So I think we have to really be putting that forward and understanding that these things do cost money, and we've got to be smart with our money.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Matt.
Alex, can I just ask a question?
Hello, Catherine.
Hello. What are these candidates going to do to fix up our woeful tip shops?
Right. Who'd like to have a go at that?
I'll have a go.
Okay.
I think again, you know, I've seen examples of really good options where you get things like the repair cafe to work in collaboration with the tip shop. Now, I don't know exactly the details of how that might. A lot of stuff that goes to the tip that doesn't get looked at, doesn't get processed, doesn't get used, and lots of it is salvageable and lots of it is useful. And that's true for all the 3. The tip shop, it should be a welcoming, nice place to go to, not something that no one will ever set foot in, because that's how you make things, that's how you make the circular economy run. You make things that don't appear to be valuable because they are. You know, examples are endless. We could have a pile of organisations that could look at the hard rubbish and collect stuff and get it repurposed for, instead of getting smashed up. There's a pile of things. And I don't think it's useful to say it's the economy stupid, because I don't think recycling is about, it's like climate change. It's not about the economy. If you don't do it, we will all drown in a sea of plastic. And it's good to have lots of money, but it's not great to be drowning in a sea of plastic at the same time, if you want to take things to extreme. So we have to kind of work to keep things in balance, and where that balance is different for each of us, I think. But I'm really with the recycling, repurposing, as opposed to it has to be large scale.
Okay, thanks, Colleen.
I'll answer as well. And sorry, Catherine, I didn't realize. I thought Zoom was your first. I just wasn't paying attention. So now I realize that was your question. I'm really a bit lost about the question. What is it you'd expect from a tip shop, I guess, is before I can answer your question. What is it that you find wrong with it? And what is it you'd like, you know, do you want an air-conditioned room that's got the used goods?
Please don't be so condescending.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to. I don't actually find anything wrong with it.
If you visit other tip shops, okay.
Where can you? I just want to get some context.
Bairnsdale is an example. There's plenty around Australia. When I go travelling, you see them. The main thing is they are inviting. It's all set up so it's like a shop. It's the people who are running it are actually focused on it. At the moment, the problem is the people you've got running it run the tips. That is their key job. And the tip shop is an irritating afterthought for them. When you talk to them, they're going, look, we really don't have time. We're dealing with trucks and we're dealing with, you know, hard waste and green waste, and we've got all these things, and then we're supposed to run this tip shop. And so what is happening is you're getting a very small percentage of items actually going into the tip shops, but they're just not well laid out. They're just, like, as Colleen is saying, not a fun or engaging way to shop. And so we're just not getting that full potential. So I'm not saying you've got to have air-conditioned comfort and muffins and coffee. What I'm saying is it has to be a reasonable shopping experience.
Yeah, no, so I didn't mean to be condescending. I just when you said it, when I sort of got the question, I pictured something like they have in Canberra with 10x the population. I know there's some really great facilities up there. That's all. So back to the question, I guess I saw Lisa from, I'm assuming it's Lisa from Repurposing for Resilience, talking about some collaboration. I think it's, again, like Anthony would say, it's a great chance to collaborate maybe with someone else, especially someone like Repurposing for Resilience who can repurpose all those products, but would have more of a passion for it. And I agree with you, I think the staff at the tip are fantastic, but their passion is probably not repurposing goods. It's probably, the work that they do on a daily basis. So I think there's always things council can do to get better on everything we do. I think for the size of the council we have, for the population we have, and for what we service, they do a fantastic job. I think we can obviously always look at ways to get better, but maybe working with some other groups or some volunteers might be a step in the right direction.
Okay, thanks. Is that everybody on that topic now? Rob on. Okay, all right. Well, let's then go to the next question, which is another one from Coral Anderson. And she asks, if elected, what actions will you take to raise the profile of animal welfare within council's LGA? Matt, do you want to go first with that one?
Yeah, of course. Not sure if the community knows. We're currently looking at options right now on a new pound that's been in the works now under this council term. The current one is obviously well past its use date. It's a fantastic looking facility that we'll be looking for some funds from the state government to help us build, but we'll be looking forward to that in the coming years, hopefully. It's got a separate cattery and large outdoor exercise area. And obviously, again, that's where we look at partnering with the RSPCA, Animal Welfare League, or someone like that on projects like this on the ongoing running of the facility, same as the way the Shoalhaven does. So we're looking at examples that other councils do and looking at ways we could do better for that. I think we'll continue to advocate for responsible, ethical animal ownership. And, I remembered something in particular last night. I was driving around late at night, putting core flutes up, as a lot of the candidates are, and there was a cat out chasing ducks. And I think it's all about, a lot of this comes back to the responsibility of owners. I think pet owners need to take the responsibility on themselves to make sure their pets are locked away at night and not let your cats roam around. But that's just some of the things. And I know, thanks, Cole, for the question. I know how much of a passionate person you are about animal welfare.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Rob Pollock.
I think it's a responsibility that we all face. And, I love animals. I've always had dogs and I've had cats. And it's our responsibility to care for them in a sensible and responsible manner. It's the folk that don't either register, whether it be cats or dogs. It's the frivolous type of attitude that we see, unfortunately, around the place. Every responsible pet owner cares about their animals and the impact that they might or might not have around the place. So I'm sorry, I think it comes back to responsible pet ownership, and where that doesn't happen, I certainly support the efforts of the RSPCA, the Animal Welfare League. I think they're great people, but I think it's extremely sad, the folk that aren't responsible in the field of pet ownership, and we all care for it around the place. And I'm sorry, we can't be responsible for all of those who are not responsible.
Thanks, Rob. Sharon.
I met with Louise Webber, I think it was last week. I've lost track of time. I met so many people, and she actually briefed me, Matthew, on the pound situation, because apparently it's long overdue. But the only other thing I will add to it, apparently there's an Australia-wide app or system to rehouse animals, but you have to have them desexed. And it's my understanding that the council doesn't support subsidising or paying for desexing animals. So in terms of animal welfare, it will mean that there will be animals here who can't go on the database because they're not desexed. And I would suggest that's not very good for their welfare. So I'd be really interested, if I'm elected, to jump on the other side and work on it, on the animal welfare issue, because it's important.
Okay, thanks. And Colleen.
Here we go. I too have talked to the RSPCA. They've been very busy going around talking to us all, and that is a great thing of them to have done. I agree that a new pound is well overdue. I have not seen the inside of the current one, but I've been briefed by many people that it's, you know, no longer fit for purpose and we need a new one, and we need a new one a while ago. So the sooner that can be done, the better, because that gives us a platform to work with for responsible pet ownership, as Rob has put it. It gives us a platform for allowing those kind of those collaborations and working together. We should also be thinking about the welfare of our native animals. You know, Matthew talked about the ducks. There's a pile of birds that are very, very vulnerable in this area. There are too many wild cats, and you know, one or two feral cats that are not desexed can cause a real problem and can cause real ongoing issues. So whilst it's an individual responsibility, when it ceases to be an individual responsibility, it's a collective responsibility, and it can get out of control fairly quickly. Feral animals are a big problem in many shires like ours. As far as I can see, we have not the scale of the problem that some places do, but it could easily happen that we do. We don't want feral dogs, for example, to be around. That would also cause problems not only for wildlife, but potentially our kids. So I think it is a collective responsibility at some level, and a new pound gives us a platform to work collectively.
That's time. Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. And Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Great question, Coral. Thank you. We do a fair bit in this shire, and we've spoken about the pound. Good news is, and a big shout out, we actually now have koalas. So we've identified we have koalas in there. Let's park that, because that's something we're going to have to look at the new council. What is that implication of having koalas? They've been designated through the heat-seeking drones, if you will, overnight. You can look into the canopy, especially down south of Gulliga. So some really exciting work there. I've just made a list because I think this is a really exciting piece of work. Big shout out to RSPCA and WISE and the incredible work they do in our shire. Thank you for all your work. This shire has introduced cat bibs. That's not a serviette for a cat for after a meal. It puts them off their hunting, how they hunt, how they move. So cat bibs. This council is one of the, if not the leading shire in New South Wales, if not Australia, for the virtual fence, where our 2 trials have seen a reduction in roadkill by 90%, and us advocating to federal government for additional funding for more trials across both here and across the state. So that's a virtual fence. This is one of the leading councils in New South Wales that actively advocated for changes to the Animal Companion Act to give us power, because we don't have it at the moment, to introduce cat curfews or to control cats at night, because we know what they do. They are brilliant killers. We have a cat, by the way, he's inside now, but they are brilliant. So there's an opportunity we can do. We look after dogs, but we don't do it about cats. That's state government. But multiple councils around have picked up the Eurobodalla's initiative on this space. We spoke about the pound. We also, part of this, obviously, we've got to protect our biodiversity, where animals, wild animals, also live. That's a key part of the conversation. So Coral, I think there's a lot we do. There's certainly a lot we can continue to do to enhance animal well-being in this shire. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Anthony. Does anyone have any follow-up questions on the subject of animal welfare? No. No.
I will just quickly say, Alex, thanks to Cole Anderson for her push around the virtual fencing as well. She always needs her for all the work she did.
Yeah, I actually thought that question was going to go to the subject of the rodeo, but do we want to talk about the rodeo? Anyone? No, we can move on to the next question. Okay, this is one which is Narooma specific. It's Catherine Thackeray, who's been on the chat as well tonight. Her question is, there is no wheelchair taxi in Narooma or south of Moruya. What will you do to enable people who are wheelchair bound across the, wheelchair bound access to the other great wheelchair friendly facilities in the town, such as the shared pathway, floating pontoons, wheelchair access beach mat, and all the shops and restaurants that have had to put in disabled access? Who wants to begin there? How about Rob?
Yeah, I happily advocate with whatever services or funding may be available through the state government to enhance the services that exist there, but there is no way known that council can provide the type of facility in a wheelchair access. But I'm happy to advocate wherever and however to try to encourage that particular service to be made available, because of the importance. And we've done an awful lot of work throughout the Shire over the last 10 or 15 years to improve disabled access right across the Shire. So, I'm more than happy to be harnessed into any efforts in that regard, but I certainly don't see it as a specific council responsibility, but I certainly would help in any way, shape or form with the advocacy.
All right, thanks, Rob. What about Sharon?
I've been amazed. I think we've been on the road for about 2 months up and down the Eurobodalla talking to people. The number of people that tell me about problems with disabled access. There's not enough disabled parking. Apparently there's no access into Narooma Pool. I heard from Corey Stewart, he can't get across. Now I know you'll tell me that it's a Commonwealth Road, the Princess Highway. He can't get across the road in his wheelchair to go to the other side because he's disabled. He's in a wheelchair because the traffic doesn't stop. And the logging trucks come through. I'm just amazed that people haven't been injured down Narooma now that I've been down there for a while. Like the Moruya Playground doesn't have any disabled equipment. And there's been a gentleman that most of us know has been, I think, talking to everybody about that because it was supposed to have disabled equipment and it doesn't. So I just think the whole disabled piece is something that we actually put in our little group of policies for this election, that we need to look right across disabled pathways, all the access issues for families, older people and disabled people. It's just, there seems to be problems everywhere. So it looks like it's a big piece of work that needs to be looked at. And thank you, Kathy, and hello, Kathy. It's just another issue. I do agree with Rob. Subsidising transport's an issue, but it's always an if not, why not for me. It's not we can't do it. I just can't cope with closing things down because that's easy. I think we have to try a little bit harder across all areas that council provides subsidies for, because that's the job.
Thanks, Sharon. Matt, you next.
Yeah, I'll touch on the Moruya Bay Reserve firstly. I think that's incorrect. There's a wheelchair accessible viewing platform that we've just put in, a wheelchair accessible picnic shelter, a wheelchair accessible barbecue area. There is disabled new play equipment there as well, which Dr. Holland and Minister for Local Government Honing made a TikTok on. So I'm really unsure about what you mean at Moruya Bay. The amount of beach mats that we have in this shire is leading the way in New South Wales, and that's not this current council, that's councils of the past. So good on Councillor Pollock and Councillor Main and those councils of the past for their initiative. Batemans Bay has been flattened out across the shire. There is a lot of work still to be done, but I think where we are up to, we're leading the way. We're doing a damn good job, in my opinion. there are inevitably spots because of the Princes Highway cutting through the center of towns. In particular, when we talk about taxis, again, it's something I think every council would get on board with advocacy to the government to do more subsidies around that, to try to find a provider that might do that. But I will just mention again, council does operate community transport service. They help people with disabilities access wheelchair-friendly areas all across the Shire. You just need to go online and register. And I think someone's already, I think Councillor Schutz actually dropped the link in the group chat. And of course, I believe every council will continue to support that service, and it's something that council will continue. And I see it says not in Narooma. If that's true, then I'll be fighting extremely hard to change that. I'm under the belief that it is. So I'll take that on notice, and I'll damn well fight for it to get down there.
Thanks, Matt. Over to Colleen.
Disability access.
Can't hear you.
I know. There we go. Disability access is mandated in all sorts of ways, and it should be, and we need to work with all levels of government to make sure it actually happens in reality. Now, I too don't know what the council situation is in Narooma. I hope that it is equitable, available and equitable in Narooma, because there are good processes, there are good disability programs, but if you can't get to them, they're not useful. If you can't get to the beach where the ramp is, if you can't get to the shops where the disability access is, then that's not a useful thing. And it's a multifaceted strategy, but it must be addressed. And disability includes all of us as we get older. And it also includes sort of access issues, include people who have small children and prams and so on. My personal favourite is the wicked problem at Tomakan, where people from the town can't very easily get to the shops because there's no footpath. So, and it's along the George Bath Highway near a roundabout. So there's a range of those things which are, in the scheme of a big shire, tiny, but for the people who live there, they're major and important. And Narooma is not a small place, and it needs the same access as Moruya and Batemans Bay and other places.
Thanks, Colleen. Is that everyone? Anthony? No, perhaps Anthony, have you spoken on this?
No, thanks, Alex. I'll just jump in. I think you can hear, Catherine, the commitment to this space, because the disability right's clearly a human right. And I would suggest your question could actually become the agenda for the very first Disability Committee's first meeting in the next council, because listening to some of us more experienced councils and the candidates looking to stand, this is a really interesting question. You've raised a couple of really important points we need to all get across and dive deeper into. So I'd join with Matt certainly in advocating this to be looked at as a priority, because if there are those gaps, let's get on top of them very quickly. And that really there is no reason why we can't address some of them with make it a priority. Great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Does anyone have any supplementary questions on that topic? All right.
I'll just mention also the park at Corrigan's Cove. And I know, Catherine, I know you're about to say that's not Narooma. And I think in particular for myself, and I can say this about every councillor, no one thinks about Narooma or Batemans Bay. We are a whole, we are a shire. I just want to point out the great facilities we do have. And I know that there was a big push by a member of my team over many years to work with disability group to get that park going in Batemans Bay, Batehaven. But there's no doubt there's more work to be done all across the Shire in that space. And I think there's been a commitment of many councils of the past to do more work in that space and go after it. So I'll throw my number in the chat. I think it was Iris, whoever it was, about, and I'm happy to chase up some more details for you as well tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Matt. All right, well, we'll move on to the last question. which is another one for Narooma. And it's from Khaleesi Woodhouse. I hope that's how you say it. Will you oppose the DA proposal to rezone semi-rural land on the old highway Narooma for 198 prefabricated houses on 250 square metre blocks of land, with the house being only being sold, not the land, on heavily contoured land with no floodwater mitigation? The plan proposed to flatten the site with little, if any, consideration on that impact and no community consultation.
Alex, do you mind if I just quickly, and I'll let everyone say whatever they want, but I just want to remind, if someone is running for council, you know, any statement they make now around a DA in particular that's coming to council could come back to bite you, that you should not be taking a stance on a DA that's going to come to council. You know, you need to seek all information before you make your determination. So I would just, you know, hopefully remind any prospective councillors before they say anything about that.
All right. Well, you do have the option not to answer any of the questions as stated before, but does anyone want to have a speak about that Narooma development? Hello, Rob.
It's not a matter of a DA and whether we would support or whether it be a rezoning. It is a matter of whether this particular proposal is allowable under the existing legislation. There are two pieces of legislation which are relevant to this land and to this proposal. I think that it will most probably end in court because the two pieces of legislation actually could be described as competing, and it will take an analysis or legal decision as to whether it is permissible or whether it is not permissible. And I've made I've had conversations with a lot of people regarding this and their concerns, but that's the actual situation with the proposal and the two competing pieces of legislation as to whether it is permissible under one particular piece of legislation or whether it is not. And that's probably for higher powers than currently exist in council to decide.
Thanks, Rob. Sharon, would you like to speak on that one?
Well, I could probably speak on this one and the Browley as well, because I think they're the same. I've got
no,
sorry,
they're not.
no, in terms of council's role and what's permissible and what is not permissible, and I am not in council. And I'm sure when we're in council, we take good advice and we make sure every issue is assessed on its merits and with legislation and with any other requirement. So all I can say about all those, and we're effectively in caretaker at the moment, so I don't know that anybody should have an opinion about this point. Well, I certainly won't. So, but it's the same with the Browley for me.
Okay, good. Colleen, do you want to address that one?
Unmuting. Well, I'm already agreeing with Matt that, you know, you have to take every proposal for development on its merits. You have to look at all the ins and outs of it, including the legislative base. So of course that is the case. But given that, I'm not particularly inclined to be in favour of this one. So I don't know. I'm not in council either. But I'm not inclined to be in favour. It's a way out of town. It's not necessarily going to be easily integrated into the larger community, but time will tell, and there will be discussions about that one.
Okay, thanks, Colleen. Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Look, I think one of the roles clearly as a councillor is, notwithstanding the governance around DAs, is that we are approached by members of the community who raise questions and seek for us to ventilate them and seek feedback through the appropriate portals into council, and we do that. And I've certainly been down to Narooma to visit this site and speak with locals. I'm curious because I've seen the geotech report that is only on half the property. The purchaser bought another adjoining property. I couldn't see the geotech on the other property. So question marks. I'm just simply being curious. I need to ask the people who understand this, give us some guidance. I noticed there are multiple dams. It's very undulating territory. So not a lot of significant waterways there. I want to see the floodplains. I want to see, can it be done safely? I'm advised through the geotech's report that there's 2 meters of unknown infill. So if you're going to build on in a water zone area and there's 2 meters of something under the surface that's been put there, what's in there? We need to understand that. So it's not to say that something can or can't be done, but it is to say we have a role as council to bring this to our subject matter experts to pinpoint so we can better understand what is going on here. Is it a viable, tenable option, or does it present some real significant challenges? And that's up for council to work with the people who are proposing the development as well. So that's got to, for me, this has serious question marks. I look forward to receiving more information. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks. We've actually come to the end of the questions that we're going to ask tonight. Perhaps we've got a little bit of time left. Perhaps we could just have perhaps just a 1 minute pitch from each of the councillors, and just to wrap it up, and yeah, put your position. Is it if you'd like to do that? Who'd like to start? Hello.
Alex, do you want to ask if others have questions too? Remember at the end?
Yes, that's true. Yes. Are there any more questions from the people attending? Any coming up? No. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I just think we might leave it with a bit of a just perhaps a 1 minute pitch from each of you. How about we can start with Matt. Perhaps we'll start with Matt.
Thanks, Alex. I think if there's an elevator pitch, for me, it's about bringing all the councillors together. I think it's important for us to continue preaching to community. It's not the mayor who decides everything. It's a collective decision. I try to bring respect to the office and make sure that I'm working collaboratively with all the councillors in the room. I think it's important that we continue to work together because we're all elected leaders for the community. And the more positive we can do in that, I think that positive approach will obviously flow back to the community. We'll see a better response and attitude towards council and what I think services are provided to the community. I think through the last 2.5 years, which I've been incredibly honoured to be able to be the mayor, I've thoroughly enjoyed getting out and about all through the Shire from north to south and out to Ballowra. It's been just this weekend I was out at Narragunda, and it's just it always gives me that reminder that we're still going through a lot as a community post bushfires. I think there's a lot of PTSD in the community, and it goes for myself as well. And I think we've got to continue to come together, not be divisive, and not try to work against one another. I think there's solutions much better solutions for everyone if we try to come together. And I want to say thank you to all the candidates for putting their hand up and all those people on the booth handing out for them. Agree or disagree, it's been great to get to know a lot more people in the booth, and it's good to see democracy alive and well, and everyone having a good time. So thank you, and I hope you'll consider giving me another go.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Rob Pollock.
I've always believed that councillors and staff working together in a respectful manner brings about a better result for the whole of the community. That's not something that I've observed so closely over the last 3 years. I certainly would not agree with that the mayor and his group have been inclusive in terms of collaborating over the last 3 years. But what I'm more interested in is council delivering reliable and regular services. And I think some of the cutbacks that are proposed put at risk the very maintenance and provision of services. And I'll be looking exceedingly closely at those propositions. I have asked for details as to where those cutbacks are going to impact in the works and delivery programs. They have not been able to be provided to me, so I'm not at all convinced that that's in the best interests of our community. And I'll work collaboratively with anybody for what I see as sensible and ongoing results for our community. And it's the community in the end that are the ones that we're there to serve.
Okay, thanks very much, Rob. And Anthony Main.
Thanks, Alex. So, look, this is my second term as a councillor. I've got to say, in the second term, I smile more than the first term. So, if that's a reflection of anything, I've certainly witnessed firsthand some positive culture change within this current term. Look, we're the Nature Coast. So, for me, I think we need to continue with enhancing our engagement with our community, a little bit more transparency I'd like to see. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a slightly controversial matter. 14th of February 2023, I highlighted that this council was voting to have confidential discussions with developers to increase the Batemans Bay height limit from 18 metres to 70 metres. That's approximately 400%. That's 21-storey buildings. Civic in Canberra doesn't have them. None of the councils around us have it. Kiama doesn't have it. Ulladulla doesn't have it. But apparently that's okay for this council. And I'm really pleased to shine a light on that. The community may come back and say, you know what, we do want to have it, but we're going to be committed to transparency. We've got to put that out to the open, have that discussion. How's that influencing and playing out in the master plans as well? You know, it's great that we're going to go and talk with our community, but it seems to be a lot of groups have been privy to some of these discussions. I'd love to see our community informed a lot earlier in these discussions, because you put out a term like number like 70 metres, that horse bolts really quickly. Developers hear that, investors hear that, and starts to build its own momentum. And at the end of that momentum, we get our community involved. So transparency, engagement. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Colleen Turner.
Thank you. Well, I'm going back to healthy and happy and housed, but I will say that my pitch for both mayor and councillor is that council is a very important part. Council is a very important part of the community, of the way our shire operates. It's a large organisation. Good governance is really, really important, and open and transparent good governance is the key to doing that. Councillors have a role, staff have a role, general managers have a role, as do mayors, and we all have to work together, and we have to be able to have robust discussions, and we have to be able to have robust discussions that are not always confidential. I believe that there are some things, of course, that are confidential, but there needs to be a certain amount of transparency with the community, and because that's how people that, like councillors, get to know what's going on the ground, in the real world, all those things, and in other community organisations like the RSPCA, like the SES who pulled a tree off my roof the other day, like all of those surrounding organisations, like federal and state governments. All of those things have to work as a good machine, and to do that, you have to have governance that works.
Thanks, Colleen. And last for Sharon Winsley.
Does this mean I get to go last? Oh, look, I've tried this elevator pitch stuff and I'm not very good at it. So I tend to run to my CV. Look, I've spent 15, 16 years in public service. Twice I've been in serving the people, basically, because that's how I view it. Really interesting subject matter, really large projects, really large numbers, lots of economics. And the reason I've come out of retirement to hopefully serve on council is because I do have all these skills and experience in education that I actually want to bring to council. Council does so many things well. I'm in Rosedale. We had no power for 3 weeks after the bushfires, which meant we had no sewer. and the council staff and everybody wrapped around us, and they were fantastic. I just think in terms of governance, we can't make any more big mistakes. We've got too many on the books, and I'll be very interested to get inside the PAVs if I'm elected, very interested to get inside the dam project. And I just think, you know, they're the kind of skills that I can bring to council, and I would like to serve. That's it from me.
Thanks, Colin. Oh, sorry, Sharon. Sorry about that. Okay, well, we might actually wrap it up. For anyone who's watching this Zoom, either now or later, if it's posted, the Moruya Mail has got candidate statements for all of the candidates on the website. It's a separate document you can download there. Just for more information. And yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming tonight and for tuning in to watch, and to Trish for being a great coordinator up there. Okay.
Thank you. I'll stop the recording there.